feel your presence here, holding every broken piece, wiping every hidden tear. When the night was cold and lonely, you were standing by my side. Through the storms that tried to break me, you became my place to hide. Every road I walked in darkness, every fear I couldn't face, you kept calling me so gently. Now I'm wrapped in your grace. You never left me.
You never change.
Your
Your
love
love
kept
can
reaching through all
be.
my pain.
I'm wrapped in your praise, covered in mercy.
Held by
To
your
God be the glory on this
love.
Sunday, celebrating on this July 5th of 2026. We still celebrating everybody. And all I'm doing now is just looking over some footage and things that I didn't get a chance to see because I was busy yesterday, but I got up this morning and I gave you some commentary on some of the things that I did get to do yesterday, and I did enjoy myself yesterday. I had a wonderful 4th of July. I got out there to deal with this is the day. A lot of people, as you grow older, and you've been in America most of your life, you get to understand the history. As God take you through every different chapter of your life. And one of the things that I realized in this country as I've seen the things that have happened. And I said I didn't go to school with these kids that come from places like India, China, and even some children from Mexico. See, my time coming up in school and education, they taught American history. They taught it was okay to talk about God openly and even teach it in school. That's how we learned the American flag. We learned about the Constitution. And most of that was like in middle school. Elementary school, I got the basics that I could remember. In fifth grade, I had got the basics on all I didn't go into all the heavy stuff. We just learned about the basic Benjamin Franklin, Christopher Columbus, Washington. Not too much of Lincoln. We only learned about Lincoln's death. We didn't really hear him signing the Declaration of Independence, but they left a whole lot of the story behind Lincoln out. And Washington, they told you the cherry tree and chopping down the cherry tree and all the beautiful American apple pie story, okay? But they didn't tell you about all the dark moments of their life and the other dark things that happen. Those things, they can't give that to children, okay? You'll figure it out as you go along, but you do learn at home too, because we had homework. Today, they don't really give children homework to do. We had to study that assignment, and our parents had to check behind us, and the homework assignments had to be signed by your parents. And if it wasn't turned in, your parents will be getting a phone call. Okay? That's how it used to be in the time when I was coming up. And then as this generation started coming up, I noticed a lot of things have been missing from the children. And I even went inside the schools myself to see it for myself, how different it was from when I was going to school. I got to see it because I became an early educator. So I was able to see some of the things that are not being taught to the children today, to hold them strong and help them to become more patriotic, and to help push your kids out in the world to do better things for themselves in life and feel good about what they're doing. And, just have that spirit of hope and everything. You don't have to worry about every time your child walks out the door that some gang was going to come and attack your daughter, or a gang will come and try to get your child into joining them in the gang when they got a missing father at home. And the mother is basically never really around because she's probably working to probably carry that family all by herself to, get them through life. And there's no help but her alone. And, some people, once they get in those days, a lot of women who were left struggling on their own, they basically had their family to help them, especially those of us who came from the South, who families migrated from the South. Like my mother, she came from the South. So a lot of things that were taught to her poured into her and her values. She carried that with her to New York to raise her children. But one thing about New York is very hard to raise a large family in New York. Now, if my mother would have been in the South and raising us, it would have been a whole lot more different. She would have had a great support system. But since she was in New York and she had a large amount of children, she only had very few relatives that she can really get some support from. And even they was having a hard time because, New York was always overcrowded, crime. And you living in a city with people that come in from all over the world, that they dump into New York, like come in as immigrants, and it's a sanctuary city, and it's just a whole lot of stuff that you trying to raise a family in New York, especially in the projects or around poverty in the ghettos of New York and everything, and your kids get caught in crime and danger and things of that nature. But in those times, I mean, my family, and even though my father's family, they gave my mother the most support because those were his children. And, he was the man of the family and stuff like that. So the woman in the family from my father's side gave my mother the biggest support of helping her with her children growing up in New York City, how everybody looked out for each other's child. My mother only had one sister in New York, and she had a family of her own too to care for, but she helped out too to help my mother with her family. It just got like that. But families are not like that knitted family we had back then. Okay, a lot of people broke away from their family lineage and everything else, and they just got all caught out and lost in the world. You know, but celebrating its 250th anniversary was a blessing to America to remind us of who we are, where we came from all different places of the world, and how we all came together under one nation. And people that came here that from all different places. And like I shared this morning, a lot of the immigrants that came back in those days in America, those who came from all these European countries, and even the slaves that they brought into the United States and whatever like that. Once they got here, and those slaves, the slave story is very brutal to tell, and it really throws you off a lot when you go back in the slave story. But that's why you got to go deeper, and that's why you have to understand the story from Christ in the beginning of the story, because slavery did not start in America. Slavery was an inhumane system for a very long time from all different old places of the world. It came from those old countries of the ancient places. Like, we tell the story of Egypt. We told the story how the Egyptians had some of the people in slavery. The Persians, they ruled at one time. They had people in bondage. You look through history. Slavery started from places of Africa, Arab nations, and even places in Europe. Okay, in those places of the world. I think some places in Europe they had the Irish oppressed. Okay, and that's when they escaped, and mostly dark Europeans. Irish were gingers. Okay, they have a different texture of hair than most white people, and they also have a different look to them. They have freckles and you know things of that nature. The Irish, they also was treated very poorly in Europe, in places in Europe. When you hear there's a story behind every immigrant of what brought them to the United States of America. Certain people who had a certain look to them, they were treated in a certain way. And the Irish were one of them in the European culture. And then when they came to America, they felt hey, it ain't them no more. You know what I'm saying? So everybody prejudice came from somewhere, and everybody's mistreatment of other people stemmed from somewhere else as well. Because a lot of people was like, well, I was, Irish, and but in America, the story of the slave in America was the black enslaved African child or African people. Nobody else was enslaved in America, but that's the story of America. Okay, not nowhere else. You can't bring your story here to the United States of America and say you was mistreated by America when you came here as an immigrant freely. These people did not come freely; they were forced. Okay, it's a whole totally different, and how they had to find their freedom and recreate themselves, and how they had to take power in politics and all kind of other things, and became the most influential people in the world, even though they don't get the credit in America for it. But behind every successful president and behind every successful whatever they became in America, Benjamin Franklin, Eli Whitney, all of these inventors, all of these people that came with these great ideas, Benjamin Franklin, what's his name, Bell, all of them had a great servant, a slave that helped them fight their wars, okay? Knew how to defeat people that were coming into the nation and try and destroy America. Those slaves, they fought for their masters, okay? Now, there was some that did that was like, no, we running away. We getting the fuck up on out of here. I ain't staying under this kind of whatever. And those ones were punished because they were causing problems for the under enslaved people. And it was going to cause problems. So those are the ones they punished. Those are the ones they killed. Those are the ones who they said was, being unruly and disobedient or whatever. And then a lot of them look at it in the text of the Bible, but God never told us to punish anybody. God does the punishment. But of course, He allows certain things to happen so that we can feel it in our spirit. Okay? Like, think, listen quickly, but respond slowly. Don't automatically just ready to do the wrongs, do something and put yourself in trouble or put your life in jeopardy or even put your family in jeopardy. Sometimes you got to think about more than just yourself before you make these kind of dangerous moves. When you know that you have no weapons here on earth to fight against the adversary or to fight against something that's wicked, you have to learn how to find and tap in prayer to the Lord to ask Him what you shall do. Sometimes God will say, if you really looking to take over your day and lay your life down, then do it. But if not at this time, then don't do it. You understand what I'm saying? Because whatever you choices you make, there is consequences. So which one you gonna choose to do? You're gonna do it for yourself and put yourself first and not think about the other people that you might get harmed besides just yourself? Or you gonna just stay humble because you're thinking about the lives of others? So you got to make that choice for you as an individual. It's not good to follow everybody and everything and protesting against something. And I said it loud and clear. I refuse to protest against my nation. Whether my president is a good president or a bad president, my job is to stay humble to the Lord, pray for my leaders, hoping that they will bring change in the way they feel about certain groups of people or the way they want to do certain things in a certain way, that they'll have a change of heart, not to harm anybody, not to do any harm to themselves or not to do harm to this nation. So my job is just to be there in prayer, because I know if anything happens to my president, something gonna happen to me too. So that's why I don't get it with people trying to say the bad things they say. There's a whole lot of stuff. Let me tell you something. There's a whole lot of things that I seen. And you heard me say it. Even with this Carmelo Anthony thing, that young man did not, what they did to him, that was injustice of him, giving him a sentence of 30 something years over the accidental death of Austin Metcalf. And then I looked at his age. I looked at both boys' age, and I looked at there was no adult supervision. I had to look at things where people weren't looking at. They just going on skin color and everybody getting emotions all high, but you got to go further than just the surface of where this whole thing stemmed from. And then after the incident. Now, there's some certain young black people I'm going to defend. Yes, I am, because I could see in Carmelo Anthony that I seen that his parents were good citizens. And I seen that his parents were trying to raise their children up in a good, positive environment, and wanted to, they were law abiding citizens, and how they son got caught in this situation like this and the kind of friends he probably had. You can't be everywhere with your children. And children do certain things with friends what they don't do in front of their parents. And some things they do in front of their parents they don't do with their friends. So it's very hard to really say they were bad parents when I saw that this young man had a great, his academically, he was a high performance, and also his athletic abilities, and he also had a disability, of course, because of his, seizures that he have. He has a health condition. You understand what I'm saying? And people didn't get into all of that. They just automatically want to crucify this little young man for the accidental death of Austin Metcalf. But we are spectators. We're speculators. We weren't there to really know what really happened. But what we can do is pick from the information that was given to the public, that we can decide whether or not we could see that this young man was triggered by something, or he was bullied by somebody or whatever. And then to go into knowing the history on black lives being innocently taken out of here, you know. And then the next thing you know, that was tossed at us during his trial and all this other stuff. You see all this other negative stuff start popping up about other killings and deaths of young black men in other places of the states, and incidents that had happened that seemed kind of like, why is this going on so much? Then you have to take time out and say, why they keep coming like this? And then you realize the good got to suffer because of the bad. Because some of them were in the wrong for what they were doing, and the things that they have brought attention to from of themselves. And then there's some that they try to avoid trouble, and they just somehow ran into it, and they try to figure themselves out how they going to set themselves free. There's some that really truly are innocent, and I think the law has been very unfair with. And then you see the ones who are definitely, you know, criminals that need to be behind bars or need to be punished. Need to deal with certain harsh consequences. Not saying anybody break the law that anybody should walk freely. There should be some level of punishment. I'm not saying nobody should get past the law freely, but with Kamala Anthony's situation, I always thought it was kind of unfair. That I felt it was unfair because, first of all, the way the incident happened and what happened, and they automatically rushed to judgment that the young black boy was already guilty of a crime, when the little white boy, had a history of being problematic, him and his brother. And then by the behavior of the father, you could see where the apple fell from the tree. Okay. Him coming out in public and saying the stereotypes, the stereo things, and the rants that he made after the day of Carmelo's sentencing was wrong. And the way they moved with that whole case was just totally prejudiced and should have just never been. That's why I'm praying and hoping. And I just like say there's some platforms I try to stay away from who are covering the Carmelo, you know, story. Cause some of them are just doing it just for to get the money and have all of the, the views and the likes and the algorithms or whatever. But they not being careful about some of the things they putting out there that can put Aunt Carmelo's family in trouble. Even though they saying they helping, but for a good cause, but they're not, because they putting information out there that's not accurate, not factual. Okay, and they confusing the public. Let the process, let his legal process handle that. Let his legal advisors handle that. Let his people that is on his team, like his lawyers, his attorneys, and his team workers, they work with that. Not you. You're not the lawyer. You're not sitting in a house. You don't know what's going on. You a speculator. You not there. And it just sickens me when black people get excited, get on the bandwagon about they fighting for justice, but then they mess up that whole person's case. They did the same thing to R. Kelly. They got on platforms. They started talking about his case. They started saying this about the attorneys. They started doing all kind of crazy stuff, and that jacked up R. Kelly's. They didn't help him. They put him more and more in jeopardy. And that's why I say y'all got to be very careful about how y'all reporting around these high profile trials. Now, when the trial is going on, I stayed quiet. I came out and spoke when they gave the verdict. I didn't. I just said the trial was going on, but I said what I said even before the trial about when the incident happened. I spoke on some things to try to make people see what's right and what's wrong, and how to judge fairly or whatever. But the thing is that once the trial is going on and they doing still in is they building rebuilding a new trial, why are y'all on y'all platforms talking about it? Why are y'all on your platforms giving information to the public about his attorneys and talking about his attorneys and talking about how they messed up and doing this let the ops do that. You stay quiet. If you support Carmelo Anthony, let the ops do all they think they gonna do to try to mess this young man up. But if you a real supporter for Carmelo Anthony, you stay silently in prayer that this time they'll get it right for him. But while y'all running y'all mouth and telling all of this and telling all like y'all know everything, you are not the attorney, you're not the judge, you're not the juror. Da, 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 da. Yes, we could talk about the last case of what went wrong because that's over with. But he has a new case that is building, and y'all out there putting things out there that y'all shouldn't be putting out there. And they did the same thing to, like I said, to a lot of innocent, like they did to R. Kelly. His support team, they still sitting on Tasha K's platform, being entertained by that wicked woman. The men they supposed to be supporting and saying, oh, but they ought to be over there to be nosy and entertained. I did the same thing when R. Kelly was going through. I was trying to shut people up. When they came at me and attacked me. And that's these some of these, like I said, I'll fight for some of these black young people like Carmelo Anthony. Okay. But I tell you who I won't support. I'm not going to support people that go out there and intentionally put themselves in a bad situation, knowing what the outcome is going to be. And I'm not jumping on every bandwagon with every black life that has been harmed. Because some of them need to get right with listening and knowing how to do things without being so bold and doing it and harming other people with their actions or whatever. But I wanted to give a shout out anyway to President Trump. I said shout out to President Trump. You know why? Moving on is because President Trump made sure he covered New York. He made sure that city that he grew up in and had the best of his life in growing up, hanging in the ghetto, hanging out with the people in New York. Call him all the names you want to call President Trump, but he got mad love for his city. And he was not going to allow these people to try to destroy New York's spirit for the holiday. So he made sure he put on that harbor with the ships and everything that were coming over. Oh my God, it made you cry when you looked at the New York, because I got a chance to look at it and I was in tears. When I saw those planes flying over that Statue of Liberty and flying across the sun, they went through that thing. They was doing that stuff all day. Okay. And I said, you know what that was? And a lot of people don't see it the way I see it because they don't have that strong patriotism for the United States of America, and they don't do too much of their American history, and they don't study their word. They don't get into the Bible over this Christian nation because we are a Christian nation. We may not have everybody in here ain't a Christian because everybody didn't come to be a Christian. Some people came as criminals. Okay. Some people didn't come as Christians. Some people just came to escape some of the hard things they were living in the conditions they were living in their own country. But in the Bible, if you're a Christian, you know, if it says the orphan, those people, those immigrants, they are orphans to America. Not immigrants, but orphans, and they're the stranger. And it says, be kind to the stranger. And it also teaches us also to love one another. And we also got to remember all the fact that we all came from a dark past, and we all came from someplace else in our life before we became American. Actually, we transitioned or transformed our minds, and our hearts were circumcised to become an American. Now these people have no home. Some of them have no home to go home to. America has become their home. They built their life here. They sent their kids to school here. They start to embrace America. They love America. They've been good workers and everything else trying to be. But see, we still got to look at the fact that how did you get in? Did you come through TPS status? And as you came in through your TPS status, you did file for your citizenship. In the meantime, because you've been here 26 or whatever years, it shouldn't wait for the last minute to do that. To apply for your status. From the time you enter the grounds, you should be putting your application in. You shouldn't be waiting until, like, okay, your TPS is over and it's time to go. No, there are people who have came to visit New York, that came to the United States. They stayed for a while. They got a visa, and while they came to stay, they worked here and everything. They had took whatever little job they can just so that they can come to the United States under the temporary, protective status visas, because they wasn't able to work in their country because there was so much going on, wars and terrorism or whatever, and it just really interrupted their lives. It was interrupting their lives. So they had to come here to the United States of America for something better, okay? Or they wasn't getting treated right as with wages and fairly, and they had to live in such inhumane conditions and everything, and they wasn't being, in that situation. Always think about how why somebody would want to leave. Now, then there's some coming here and they doing the wrong things. They trying to overthrow our government. They coming in here breaking the laws. They stealing from the benefits that we have for the poor here. And they doing all kind of other criminals things. And they have to go back. And then the people that come here and they feel entitled. You got to go back. When you come to the United States of America, you ought to be humble. You ought to make sure you are in need. You ought to make sure that whatever you might need, America will give it to you. You don't have to steal from us. You ain't got to do no harm to our citizens or none of that. When you are in need, we have resources to help you. That's why we have the resources we have. That's why you're here. And a lot of them don't get it. And you came under TPS status, you got in through TPS. But some borders were not covered. Some things were not covered when some of you were coming because of some governor, the wickedness of the administration that was in power at the time allowed some of you in freely just so that they can use you for their elections. They didn't care about your safety. They didn't care about protecting you. They just put the papers there, threw some money at you, and gave you access into America, but they didn't care about really your well-being. They didn't care about longevity. Okay? They only cared about you just to get them into that seat of government and in power. They didn't care about your safety. They didn't care if you was going to be okay, if nobody won't harm you, if you don't get dragged out of here by ICE and they find you and they drag you out of here and anything can happen. You know, they wasn't thinking about your protection. If you didn't come through the right way, they didn't know who you were. Okay? Bottom line, America, she doesn't know who you are, and you didn't come here as a friend, you came as an enemy. But when you come through the right way, you came showing your, honest, true self and your need, and we take you in and we take care of you. Like yesterday when I walked in that farmer's market and I saw those people working, I was so mad because they shouldn't be. These are immigrants. And they get them, this is their time to learn this country. This is their time to understand what their freedom means and what their independence mean and what they need to learn about being here as a new immigrant. And they should not be treated as cattle working on a day of independence to serve the American people. And that's wrong. That day was meant for immigrants. The Americans that already been here and have benefited here, those are the ones who's supposed to have been helping them to come to the show, to come out and be a part of this day, like I did. And I went and told the manager they shouldn't be working until I said 12 o'clock. Your store should be closed. I mean, this farmers market should be closed because this is their day to celebrate their independence, coming to America and learning this new home that they live in. And I thought that was very mean, whoever did that. Okay, especially in Delaware. That was really cruel. That's why they only hire immigrants there so they could get over to mistreating people and stealing from these people and making these people work and paying them very little. It's wrong. They should be treated fairly and they should also get a fair wage just for their work too. We shouldn't be treating nobody like that just because they different and they come from a different country. If they good at what they do, they should be also compensated for it. That's how I feel. I don't hate immigrants. I don't like the ones who come here illegally, because those are the ones that I don't know who they are, and they could do harm to people in this country, and they could do harm to our government here. They could do harm to anybody, anything. And those are the ones that frighten me. But the ones who come here the right way and came here to work hard and that been good and that's been kind to the, that's been appreciative and grateful, they cool. I'll fight for them. But I would not fight for the ones who come here, like the Haitians and the Nigerians and the other ones, the Somalians, all of those that come here like and they feeling entitled and they come in here with an attitude. And then on top of that, they sit in here and they talk bad about black Americans and they talk bad about black people. A lot of nerve. So those are the ones that we need to kick out of this country and bring in the ones who appreciate this country and embrace this country. And it's always the good that got to suffer because of the bad. But let me get into this that I wanted to say about President Trump and thank him for what he did for New York yesterday. He didn't say it out loud, but I know he was behind it because he's the president of the United States, and that is his city. Okay, that's his state. That's where he came up from. The dirt. That's his state. That's his state, and that's where he came up from. And I think he deserved this recognition because Kathy Hochul, and that Mayor Zerani were trying to discourage the American people not to celebrate the 250th day of celebrating America. And they also tried to boycott the holiday. Nerve of these people. These are what you call the communists living in America. They're always trying to find a way to overthrow this government. And they try it all the time and they fail. And it's really gotten worse. Who elected these people in power? I don't know. But anyway, they were trying to discourage and New York has a lot of history, especially when it comes to our economy. Because on the water, because I took banking, the principles of banking, the history of banking also. And one of the things we learned about the history of banking, we learned about the Great Depression. And when we learned about the Great Depression that brought us out of, what was his name? President, was it President Hoover? Well, anyway, when we went through the Great Depression, New York was known for its ports. Okay, that's where all exports and imports were coming in and out on the harbor. And being that when people were settling here in New York, when we were just building this United States of America, that's where mostly all the trade came from in New York. That's why they got the World Trade Center, because it was all built around the waters where the ships will come in and go out. So basically, that was the important economy of New York. And that's what we had to, that's why New York was on a high alert with somebody like Mondani in that city as our mayor. How did he get in? Who put him there? The enemy put him there. Because this man has no interest in this country. He has no interest in this country becoming great. All he want to do is destroy this country and make this country a third world country like where he came from, a failed nation. He didn't come to embrace our culture. He didn't come to embrace anything about this culture. He just came to destroy, to conquer and destroy. Okay? And that was his mindset is at. And Hochul, I have no idea about her. I don't know nothing really about her, but by her, the way she's been moving, and I don't even think she should be governor anyway of a state like New York. I'm sorry, she's a female, and yes, I am going to be prejudiced about it. She's a woman and she got issues. Okay? Liberal women issues. And I think if anybody should be over that state, especially as governor, it got to be somebody who came from something like maybe what President Trump came from. Okay? An immigrant family that really embraced this culture here and really embraced America and really appreciate America. Okay? Somebody that really cares about the American people, not because of the color of their skin, not because of their religion, not because of blah, 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 but really cares about this nation and really cares about making sure that everything runs well and governs everything well in that state. Don't put people there that don't care about it. I will kick them out immediately. Just by them wanting to boycott the 250th anniversary of this United States of America, they should have been gone right then and there. They should have been impeached and out those seats. That's the way I felt. But I thank God for President Trump. Like I said, you can love him, hate him, whatever you want to do. But one thing President Trump does is he get the job done, no matter how low he gotta go. Okay, when he wants something to go right and he want it to be done right, he gonna make sure it get right. Okay, and this is what I love about his leadership. Okay, that's what I love about my president's leadership. He's gonna get down and dirty with it if he got to get it done. But he made sure that New York had a great presentation, and he made sure he anointed the skies. He made sure the military anointed the skies in New York. Made sure that they, especially around that Statue of Liberty, and he made sure the water. And if you saw all the different ships of the shows of the ships that passed through the Hudson during that time, and all the president, they said they had a storm with it and everything, because boy oh boy, they had a wonderful presentation yesterday in New York. It was a hot day. People was out there on the beach, and New York was probably lit up. But because of the storm, the thunderstorm showers that were coming, a lot of people probably didn't want to travel too far, especially when you got small kids to go see this, to be out there for the event. And another thing I wanted to share also, let me say this first. I said, shout out to President Trump for what I saw at New York's participation in celebrating America's 250th anniversary. He made sure New York was lit and with red, white, and the blue patriotism. In my opinion, the negativity from Governor Kathy Hochul and Mayor Zoran Mondani did not discourage New Yorkers from celebrating America's independence. The patriotic spirit was alive, and people proudly came together to honor our nation's history. Happy 250th anniversary, America. God bless America. I had to give him a shout out. And then to the Chattanooga in Tennessee, they did a great presentation of all. If you ever get a chance to look at some of the stuff, when you go see some of the stuff, some of the highlights of, not highlights, but footage and coverage on everything that was taking place in everybody's state, in the Americas. I mean, they had some beautiful stuff out there, boy. Stuff that I didn't even know. But they had did a great presentation. I took a picture and got a picture of this one. This was bad. Okay, the innovation and the work that they put in out there in the skies, they did oh boy gosh, they would have you in tears being an American. You'd be so proud the way they did their thing. And I give a shout out to their governor Bill Lee. I didn't know if he gave any problems of not celebrating the holiday, but I still gave him a shout out as their governor. And I wrote something about, of course, communism will never take place here. And I also told people to stop blaming President Biden, because I had to tell people stop, 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 because President Biden was not well. Okay, he wasn't well when they picked him to be president. They used President Biden. They knew his mind was cognitively dissonant, and they knew it, and they knew he was declining, and they covered it up so that they can get in and do what they wanted to do. And I blame Kamala in a way because she was the VP, and they also called her out on that border. She should have took, if she really cared about this country, besides trying to use these poor immigrants to get herself in that seat, her and all those other Democrats over there, the way they treat these immigrants. These immigrants vote. These immigrants are these people. Some of these people were just as scared as they can be to go back to their country. And you used and you played on their vulnerable. They should be able to pick somebody who truly cares about them and really want them to be here because they're going to make sure that they get them treated right. Not somebody that just want to use them just to be in power. And they knew what they were doing using those immigrants and putting people's lives in danger. So stop blaming President Biden because he was sick and he wasn't in his right mind when they were taking advantage of this man. They put him there so that they were able to cheat and take those votes away from Trump so that they can put Biden in there and they can do what they wanted to do. I don't think none of those people should remain in office, to be honest with you. But they do what they do in America, you know? But I'm just saying. And I said it wasn't nobody better to step up but Trump. Because he knew the immigration story. He knew about how immigrants are supposed to come here. He knew what they supposed to do when they get here. And the whole nine. And if it wasn't for him to step up at his age, to come in and to take charge, he had to do it even before he even was in 2024 election. He was doing his campaigning then, but you saw how those people were doing things when they were doing burning flags and the people were going crazy in America like that, having these unrest protesters and trying to overthrow and doing this stuff. That's why his people were out there yesterday. And black people could say what the fuck they want to say about those I wouldn't even I don't consider them all KKK. I'm sorry, I will say the Patriots. Okay, they've been sitting back quietly. They haven't really been doing much. They haven't really been showing who they are in public. But these are the Patriots. I thought they were the Klan men too, but they're not. There's two groups. There's the Patriots, and then you got the clans. Okay, you got the ghetto, rundown, those disgusting Klan members. Those are the ones from the Democrat Party. But the Patriots were these guys here, and I went and did some research on them. These are the Patriots. Okay, you see them holding up the flags, right? They came out. They didn't come out to do any harm to anybody, but people thought they came out to do harm because they so used to like Klan, the KKK, and they had their faces covered. But these are American patriots. Okay, and what they came out to do is they came out to protect the American people that will be harassed or bothered by these hateful insurrectionists that's in America. You know, these people that's trying to overthrow our government. So I had to go back and do my research, and I was like, why are they out here with this? And they been nothing being done about it. And the president saying, because they were there to protect the president, and they were there to protect the United States, and they was there to protect them on ground as domestic terrorists. They was to protecting the citizens from the terrorists in America. You know, the people that come in here and trying to overthrow the government and trying to harm the president and do all kind of crazy shit. So they made sure that 250th birthday in D.C. and everything was going to go run well because they had boots on the ground just in case anybody was just trying to get out of line with doing something. They was checking everywhere. Okay, that's who they were. Before anybody get on their page and start hitting them up, calling them out, calling them KKK members, and they doing this and they doing that. They wearing masks because they don't want to, because they got other places they work and they can't identify who they are. They work with you anyway every day. You don't know them. That's why I say you got to be careful, even in the workplace, the way you talk about this government, talk against this government, because you don't know who's who. And these are not all of them. Now, some of them might have some hateful racism in them, but the majority of them are the patriots. They were out there. Those are the ones who came out to protect the president and to make sure nobody was going to try to come in there and do anything crazy at any of the state fair, because they was talking all this protest stuff and everything. So the Patriots was had boots on the ground in case y'all was trying to do that protest crazy stuff and try to tear up. They were there ready for you. They were ready for you. They were there for protection. That's who they were. And I just wanted to share that story with everybody. So some of them, not all, okay? Not all. Maybe been a few in there. There could have been some wicked ones, but I'm sure now that the story been told that they were out there to protect the president of the United States, and they was there to protect the innocent people of the United States. Okay? They wasn't there to do a bad thing. So with that being said, God bless you. You all have a wonderful and blessed Sunday. And if God's willing, I'll come back with you all maybe. Oh, no, no, no. It was something else I wanted to share with you before I get out of here when I was talking about the Carmelo thing. But these were the Patriots, okay? I just wanted y'all to know. I did a little bit more research. They was there to make sure that, you know, these places, 4th of July, the 250th birthday of America, that nobody was going to come there and try to harm the president or try to harm any of the people that were innocently there. Everything ain't negative. So don't listen to the negative black channels that's still dealing with trauma and again can't get past it. Listen to me. I'm a woman of God. I love the Lord, and I try to see things going through an eye of a needle, and I try to use my spiritual lens and my godly wisdom to help you out so you don't live in fear, okay? And then on top of that, you don't do nothing stupid. They work anyway. They your boss, they your whatever, but they have to cover their face. Now, I don't blame them. And this was something I shared about me telling the grocer that these people need to be shut. I told them yesterday. I said you should be closing your store at 12 o'clock today, so these people could celebrate their Independence Day. Especially these people, because they immigrants. They shouldn't be working, especially on Independence Day, because this day is basically for them, and we are supposed to help them. Understand that we welcome them and make them feel a part of the American family. They new home, okay? And here we are with Corin Wally's story. Cohen Wally, the little baby that was laid to rest, I believe last Saturday. His family laid him to rest after he was killed by a police officer. And the family used him. Well, they saying they used him as a shield. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to say that. But from looking at this photo here with this mother with this money, this fan of money, look at this. Kneeling down and her baby Cohen with the money fanned out like that. It's not a good image for a young black girl who just lost her child, young black woman who just lost her child for racial profiling, and the baby was killed because you were accused of stealing Pampers, a box of Pampers. That's what your story, that's what you said. But this picture is speaking a whole different language. It's saying it's all about the Benjamins, okay? And it's making it look like, look, a mother holding cash at her son's funeral. This does not show a grieving mother. She did it for the bag. That's what's going to happen, okay? Because this image of her sister kneeling down at her toddler's funeral with the teddy bear and with the money fanned out, instead of holding the teddy bear and the money not being fanned out, but her head down and her grieving, holding the teddy bear, reminding her of her baby and his loss. She holding up those dollars. That don't look right. in your story. Like, how come the baby got shot? What did y'all do? How did the baby get shot in the car? That's why they said it's an ongoing investigation. They make sure these things go on this investigation so people will really start showing out their true colors. While they think everything, nobody's watching. Like Joe, like, what's his name did? Like Jeff McClap, about his shady past and his criminal record and everything. When the investigation was on, he should have just stayed lowly and away from the public. He waited until after Carmelo was arrested. He came out and said all these hateful, mean, ugly things. They said, oh, new trial. So when the investigation is going on, these stupid people, they come out in public, they flashing money and making racial rants and all this other stuff. And they when they say the investigation is going on, they watching to see how you're going to react after the cameras are not there, the people not watching you, or whatever. You think the people ain't watching you, you're going to start showing your true colors. And this is exactly what this mother did. She got, after her son's funeral, she down there squatted down, fanning her dollars that she got from the people that probably came to support to support her son's funeral, and probably the cash apps or whatever like that people might have sent. And now she fanning all these dollars. And you know some people struggle to give up that money too. And you putting it in their face like that, Lord, girl, you just don't know. I said, in my opinion, this image is the wrong message. When I think about a 1-year-old child who lost his life, I personally will expect the focus to be on honoring that child's memory. Seeing a photo like this doesn't reflect what I associate with public mourning. It's not. It doesn't look like public mourning. It makes you look happy. You got some money now. You know what I'm saying? This kind of ignorant display. And it says, as an early educator, a childhood educator, stories involving young children cut deep with me. And my heart breaks for every innocent child whose life is cut short. I continue to pray that the full truth come to light and that justice serve based on the facts. Rest in peace, Cohen Wiley. Now, speaking for Cohen, not her. You know what I'm saying? I'm speaking for Cohen. Because it seems to me that mama's happy now. She got money. I'm speaking for Cohen. And that's why I had to put that out there. That's terrible. You out here with yourself nailed down with your dollars, with your currency, with your Benjamins, your notes of hundreds and fifties and twenties and whatever. I see. I used to do money, so I know my notes. Okay, and here she is, hanging down, bending down with the ground. The teddy bear is not even being hugged, but she hugging them dollar bills. If that was Cohen's bear, teddy bear, or Cohen's stuffed animal, or his Blues Clues doll, or whatever teddy bear, you should have been holding that, reminding yourself of something close to your heart about Cohen. But you out here kneeling down with your dollar bills. Like that's supposed to look good. That don't look good at all. This don't look good. It's in Blues Clues. Wouldn't you be holding the doll, hugging the teddy bear, because that would be Cohen's spirit next to you, Cohen's something of Cohen? But you got the dollar bills. It's not cute. That's not cute to be doing as a mourner. Your heart's supposed to be grieving right now. What about if you're going to get justice for Cohen? Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. The things you will see in people, boy. I love this. I love the skyscraper. This is a real picture I took, and I said to New York, and I just graphic it. They did a wonderful job with that. That was so beautiful the way they anointed the sky. And of course, you know me, I shared my foods and everything that I cooked yesterday, and the desserts that I had. Yesterday was my husband's mother's birthday. So we did a little something over there and came back to the house and everything. And boy, it started pouring out raining because that rain was ready to come. We didn't even get a chance to go to the what you call it, to see any of the fireworks. because it started raining and stuff, and ain't nobody was gonna get out there in that thunderstorm. So did a nice 4th of July here, and I was drained. I was so tired because that heat will wear you out, and it was hot yesterday. That heat was killing me yesterday. God, I was wet, soaking wet. And I just showed you all my celebration of days of fun and everything. But if I come back with anything later, like I said, I had to talk to the immigrants. These people that put these immigrants to work and make them work like cattle, even on a hot, hot day, celebrating a federal holiday, they got them in there sweat working. When this day, independence, liberty, and justice for all is supposed to be for them too. Okay, and especially for them because they coming into a new country, unfamiliar to them, and we supposed to be welcoming to them, not putting them in the farmers market to do your slave work. This is horrible. I wanted President Trump to see that. you know, what these people be doing out here in Delaware, to the immigrants. And that's not fair. That is not fair to them at all. Okay. Y'all, I wanted to just come and share that with y'all today. And God bless you. And I love you. And have a wonderful and blessed Sunday. And stay